Welcome friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, all of you who've come together on this stormy day to celebrate the life of my brother Bill, an exuberant man who filled our lives in so many ways and whose life was enriched by each of you. Like you, we're all still in shock that we should be here today, that someone so vital, so loved, so in the center stream of a full and wonderful life has been so senselessly snatched from us. And while we're here to share our grief, we're also here to celebrate Bill and his many colorful dimensions, the ways in which he has touched, inspired, amused, healed, and held us in his easy embrace. On behalf of Amy, John, Ben, my brother David, and our extended family, I thank everyone for the overwhelming outpouring these past few weeks of love, notes, nourishment, kindnesses, and offers to help in every way. It has absolutely been an affirmation and a source of great strength for us. Thank you all for being here, and please join us for a reception just outside the sanctuary after our time here together. In the spirit of primogeniture and sibling rivalry, first up is Bill and Amy's eldest. As we were planning the program, he said he didn't care the order of the speaking as long as he was before Ben. So take it away, Dr. Jonathan Judd Paly.
Thank you, Melissa. So I think people are correct when they say to you, I have no words after a profound tragedy like my father's untimely passing. Nothing changes the fact that it's awful to lose someone you love, especially someone that was your role model. What I think people want to say, but don't because they worry that it'll sound selfish, is that they're grieving for the loss of their relationship with him too. And I think this is a key thing to understand about my dad's life. He developed so many good relationships in his time with us that the number of people mourning their own loss of his friendship and their relationship is truly vast. Unfortunately, it sometimes takes someone leaving us to fully reflect on the impact they had on our lives. So here are my reflections about my father. From what I've observed, some fathers seem to teach their children more by example, and others from a set of more dictated lessons. My father was very much the former. Now, obviously, he directly instilled some basic rules by decree rather than example, as I think any father would. Some of these examples included don't poop in the bathtub, keep a firm grip on the expensive fishing rod, don't hide your beer in the shed during the winter because it will freeze and it will explode. And remember that the squeaky wheel gets the grease when you're applying for jobs. I'll let you sort out the chronology of those examples. When it came to his teaching by example, though, I watched a man choose a career and a medical specialty that he loved and watched him happily go to work for 33 years. I saw him not complain when unexpected calls from the ER came in. And recently one of his contemporaries from residency in the 80s, who hadn't seen him since that time, reached out to me. And even after 30 years, remembered Bill as a kind, a gentle, likable, and a capable physician. And I think those words echo those of his colleagues, his office staff, his OR staff, the numerous patients that shared their assessment of him both during his life and now after his passing. I also observed a curious individual who threw himself into his hobbies: music, mushrooming, fishing, clamming, gardening, cooking, the list goes on and on for those of you that knew Bill. And none of these hobbies were half-assed and clearly all gave him immense satisfaction. I saw a man that prioritized his family over all else, and I watched this man become the patriarch of his own family without annoyance at the responsibility it required or excessive pride in the role, just that he knew it was something that needed to be done after his own father passed. I saw him put his family first time and time again, when it came to prioritizing Ben and my sporting events, taking us on fun outdoor adventures, encouraging or supporting us in our hobbies and our interests, and taking time off from work at any opportunity to spend time with his sons and recently his grandson. His support of our mother during her own health challenges was even more impressive, and I believe that their remarkable ability to regain some normalcy in life after her own devastating diagnosis came in part from his strength. So in this exemplary manner, my lifetime with Dad taught me more than if he told me what career to take or how to raise a family or how to choose satisfying hobbies. In his final days with us, Dad didn't need to give us last-minute advice or requests. We spent a lot of our dwindling time together just sharing the quiet understanding that he'd already shown me what I needed to know, and we mainly just rehashed our appreciation for each other. This was a person who had no regrets and was proud of what he'd accomplished in his life. In time, I'm hopeful that my primary feeling about my father will be the gratitude for how much time I did get to spend with him, rather than a complete sense of loss over the things that we can't do together in the future. I'll always be grateful for knowing him as my father, knowing my father both as a dad and then really when I became an adult, my friend. So what are we left with now, aside from profound pain? We have the lessons from how Dad lived his life. And so now, in a very unbill fashion, I'm going to verbally sum them up for you in case you didn't spend 34 years under his tutelage. Surround yourself with people who make you happy or make you a better person. Life is too short to consider spending your time with anyone else. Allow your curiosity to instill new hobbies and take you to new places. Life is definitely too short to go on wondering what new experiences or new places would be like. Do something to connect yourself to nature. Life is far too short to miss the prehistoric satisfaction of growing your own vegetables, digging up a mollusk, foraging for mushrooms, or pulling delicious things from the sea. Accept roles and responsibilities without complaining about them. Life is way too short to spend it irritated that something else has been added to your plate. And if you're lucky enough to have one, always put your family first. At the end of your life, you should be able to look them in the eyes and mutually know that everything that needs to be said already was. I love you, Dad.
Most of you are here today, have come to honor and remember a man you may know as Bill Paley, someone who enriched your lives as a loving husband, father, brother, or uncle, a fisherman, gardener, musician, and friend. Others are here to honor Dr. William Paley, who through his skills as a talented and caring surgeon helped heal you. I'm here to honor and remember someone I knew simply as Billy, the diminutive name form typically reserved for children, because growing up together, he was Billy and I was Jimmy. As adults, we still called each other by those names. Some things never changed, or at least I thought they wouldn't. It's been nearly 60 years since Billy and I first met as second graders at the Eveleth School, just around the corner from where we now sit. And although his accomplishments over those years were many and varied, to me, he was always just my friend down the street, simply Billy. The kid with whom I shared sleepovers, hockey on the pond, riding bikes, swimming, exploring the rocks behind his parents' home, and an endless array of childhood and adolescent adventures. The kid who, even though he grew up to become a devoted husband and father and an accomplished doctor, was still simply Billy. But there's really nothing simple about being simply Billy. Those of you who missed out on his formative years and who've only known him as an adult who had a wide range of skills, interests, and hobbies probably should not be surprised to learn that even when he was growing up, his interests were complex and varied. Although he was always just one of the guys, Billy operated on a different level than the rest of us. And it was his broad-based, insatiable curiosity about everything, from the complicated to the mundane, that formed the foundation for the Renaissance man that you all knew. Even as children, it was Billy's intellectual curiosity that set him apart from the rest of us. While he was not immune from doing the same stupid things as every other kid, Billy approached them on a different level. While the rest of us were content to grab a book of matches, head down to the rocks behind his house, and set afire anything we could find that was combustible in an effort to fulfill our caveman instincts, Billy created fire kits. Metal cigar boxes filled with matches in various materials so that he could compare how they burned and therefore get the most bang for the buck. Billy knew there was no sense in wasting perfectly good matches and scarce lighter fluid on something that was not going to put on a good show. Unrealized by me at the time, and probably by Billy himself, he had turned this into a science experiment. Speaking of bang for the buck, while the rest of us were satisfied with getting our hands on firecrackers, Billy managed to figure out the chemicals necessary to make gunpowder so that we could make our own explosives by packing homemade gunpowder into empty CO2 cartridges, shoving in a fuse and sealing the contraption with beeswax. Literally more bang for the buck. And it was another thinly disguised, albeit dangerous, science experiment. And remember, figuring out how to do this was no small feat back in the prehistoric, pre-internet days. But Billy was able to figure it out. As I said, Billy was on a different, deeper plane, always peeling back the onion skin to find more, taking his own path of pursuing what interested him, but always wanting to share his enthusiasm and discoveries with others. When we dragged an old and operable Solex motorbike out of his parents' basement, Billy was equally interested in the mechanical and engineering challenge of figuring out how it worked and how to make it work again, as he was with the basic end goal of the thrill of operating a motorized machine. And while everyone else was playing baseball and football, Billy took up some crazy new sport that most of us had never heard of, playing soccer at a time when the sport was barely known in the United States. While others spoke of political and social consciousness, Billy took action by joining the Peace Corps and spending his summer on a kibbutz. Jumping ahead to our friendship as it existed in adulthood, he was still the same Billy I always knew. One moment he could lower himself to the depths of sophomoric humor with me, as we did when we were kids, and moments later he'd be talking with passion about something that I could only understand on a much simpler level. But he was never condescending or ostentatious, always humble, always modest, and always unassuming. Going to a museum with Billy was an experience unto itself. He was a curator's dream because, unlike the rest of us who would cruise through the exhibits with an occasional pause, he would read, consider, and absorb every artifact and every explanatory plaque. But that was his essence from childhood to adulthood. Anything worth doing was guaranteed his full attention, whether it was medicine, art, music, fishing, skiing, photography, or gardening, and especially his family and his friends. And it's remarkable to think that so many of the things that Billy and I did when we were kids growing up in Marblehead that meant so much to him were shared later with Amy and John and Ben, and that someday Jake will follow in those footsteps on the rocks. Well, maybe not the fire kits and homemade hand grenades, but there's a lot of fun to be had. So whether we knew him as Bill, or Dr. William Paley, or simply Billy, he made our lives better and left us far too soon. May his memory be for a blessing, and may each of us carry on in a way that honors his inquisitive nature, his kindness, his zeal, and most importantly, our friendship with him, our lives enhanced and enriched for having known him.
For those who don't know me, I'm Hugh Taylor. I'm a family physician, and I'm current president of the medical staff at Beverly Hospital, where Bill worked. More importantly, my wife, Elizabeth, and I have had the privilege of being among Bill and Amy's friends for 35 years. I was asked by Amy to speak about Bill from the perspective of his medical colleagues. So to do that job justice, I have spoken with many of Bill's co-workers, and my comments here are drawn from those many voices as well as my own. Bill was truly beloved. Over the last couple of weeks, it has seemed that the entirety of Beverly Hospital has been in mourning. I usually need to get out and walk the halls to run into my fellow doctors, but recently that has not been the case. Literally dozens of physicians and other Beverly staff have found their way to my office to share their sadness and devastation at Bill's untimely death. No one thought of their relationship with Bill as merely professional. He reached everyone on a personal basis. Staff in his office told me that they remember him as always happy, never grouchy, which is the default mode for too many of us physicians. His energy, he had a way of diffusing stress in the office. His energy, his sense of humor, and his obvious enjoyment of life made a real difference in the culture of his practice. He carried this positive energy with him into the inner sanctum of the surgeon, the operating room. A hand surgeon's job is unique in that while he's operating, his patients are usually awake. So he was able to carry on conversations right through the operation. And he used this time to strengthen his bonds with patients. He loved to swap stories with them about skiing, fishing, gardening, and his seemingly endless number of interests. I was not surprised when I was told that his office has received many, many emails and notes from patients who remember his infectious enthusiasm, his genuine interest in them, and his care. I always knew that when I referred patients to Bill, they would come back and thank me for the referral. Just 2 days ago, I saw a usually sharp-tongued 88-year-old woman in my office who told me she was forlorn. Why, I asked. Because Dr. Paly had passed on. She then wanted to tell me about all the hand problems she had seen him for over the past 25 years and the wonderful care she had received. If Epic had allowed it, I could truthfully have entered her chief complaint and her diagnosis as missing Bill. In addition to being a revered physician, Bill was also a mentor to many colleagues, not just in clinical matters, but also in the fine points of office management and in what we now call work-life balance. Orthopedic colleagues have shared with me their admiration for how Bill considered all aspects of his patients' lives. He took time to make sure he understood each patient's hobbies and interests, in addition to their work and hopes and desires for the future, so he could make sure that his treatment plan took all that into account. He never operated just to operate. One of his younger colleagues told me how much he appreciated and tried to live up to Bill's advice on the importance of finding balance, of preserving time for family, friends, and life outside medicine. Even though Bill was planning to retire next year, he did not act like it. He did not slow down in the office, and he was as busy as ever in the operating room. His practice tried to steer patients to one of his partners, but without much success. And he continued to take an active part in the management of the office. He truly cared about Coastal Orthopedics, the practice he helped to build, and even put off his own retirement to help ensure its success. On a personal note, I have to tell you that Bill was as wise and caring a friend as he was a clinician. Last summer, when Elizabeth and I were struggling over how to approach our future daughter-in-law on a sticky issue, Bill argued passionately for taking the long view, for putting aside short-term grievances in favor of a lifetime of getting along. His wise counsel actually got Elizabeth to change her mind, something I have not been able to accomplish in 40 years of marriage. I'd like to share one final personal memory. It's of the day that Bill and I went sailing together last summer. The wind was blowing about 20 knots, a tad strong for my Rose 19, but not quite strong enough to dissuade us from going. We strapped on our life preservers, we headed into the wind, and we had a complete blast. I'm told that we were both grinning from ear to ear when we got back. It was a great day with a great friend, a friend I will sorely miss.
What's my password? How do you like the outfits? We tried to emulate our hero, Bill Paley. I'm Len Horowitz, and our band's name is Lenny and the Paly-ntologists. I can confidently state that we are the best Bill Paley tribute band in North America. I promise to stick to the time limit, Melissa, there you are. But it's frustrating for me because I have so much to say. We all have a lot to say about Bill. And my desire to expound upon Bill is ironic because we had an intense music-based bromance. And it was so intense that I developed this desire to print and market bumper stickers that would read, "Sing more, talk less." And all I want to do today is talk, really. I mean, I'm happy to sing, and I think it'll help us to get through. But I am going to talk a little bit. I want to introduce the band members a little bit and tell you about the songs and why we picked them. But I first want to thank these Paly-ntologists for helping me in this project. Amy honored me by asking me to do this, and indeed it was a great honor, and I felt like I really needed some help, and these guys really pitched in, and we had a wonderful few weeks, as wonderful as it could be given the circumstances. We knew each other before, we bonded more, we got to know each other more. I'm going to let you know a little bit about each of them, and it relates to Bill, I promise, sort of. On my left, David Singer. Unfortunately, David and I are competing over who is hurting more, because we both knew Bill for about 20 years, knew him well for about 20 years. And a little factoid that we learned about David is that of the four of us, he's the only one that doesn't weigh himself every morning. And he's the only one that's wearing one of Bill's actual hats. So I don't know, many of you have not been in the mud room at the Paley residence, but you walk in and there are 20 to 30 fedora-style hats. Who's next? Charlie and Annette over here. They knew Bill and played music with him for about 3 years. My far right, Charlie Dawson. Charlie is a professional musician who once saw Bill for a consultation about his fretted instrument weary fingers. Bill examined him and looked at his x-rays, and he proclaimed, "I see a lot of ukulele in your future." Did I get it right? Perfect. Speaking of ukulele, to my immediate right, I'll block your view, Annette Nicholas. Annette self-reports that her head is huge. Therefore, she brought her own Bill Paley hat rather than borrowing from the collection. Annette counterbalances her huge head by playing a tiny instrument, but this particular ukulele was from Bill's wonderful collection. It's a beautiful looking and sounding uke. So she's doing a great job with it in his memory. So I got this terrible fear that I'm going to be heard too much when I'm singing. How am I back here? I'm going to move back further. Oh yeah, we got to get our song up here. Well, a little bit more about it. So the first song, I would say, reeks of Bill Paley. He taught it to us, he loved it, and we love it. It was written by Amy Speece. It's entitled, "It's Too Late to Call It a Night." I chose it because Bill and Amy were married for 36 years. I hope I have it right, because you were married a weekend before Liz and I were married, so got it right, Liz. But Bill and Amy were incredibly in love. And this song is about a couple falling in love and staying up all night together. And I'll ask you to picture Amy and Bill early in their romance as we perform it for you. And just so there isn't tension at the end, I noticed appropriately nobody clapped it after the other speakers, but if you want to give us a standing ovation, if you just can't help it. I don't want anybody, and it'll give you a chance to stretch, right? Did I mention that Bill and I played a lot of music together, but it's generally living room, porch, and we sort of performed together once, sort of. That's my excuse. Everybody else's tune probably, but that's close enough. It's too late. Call it a night. All this time I've been lost in your eyes. Why don't you stay? We can finish the wine. It's too late. Call it a night. Is it just me and you? Everyone leave. Look at us like we knew. How could it be? Oh me, oh my. Would you look at the time? Honey, it's too late. Call it a night. How about that band? Is the light in the sky? The sun coming up? Could it be? Do you believe that we're falling in love? Oh me, oh my. Would you look at the time? Honey, it's too late to call it a night. Honey, it's too late to call it a night. No. I hope you don't think it's inappropriate to have some fun. It is a celebration of life, right? That's what I was told. What a freaking euphemism, right? Bill was a lot of things, but he was about having fun. And actually, as I was typing my little spiel, which I have to get back to here, I'm not a great keyboarder, despite my profession is mostly keyboarding, doctor. So I looked, I'm reading through it, and so I discovered that the only anagram for Paly is play, right? You can't do anything else with P-A-L-Y. So we're playing for you, but we're playing with life as Bill did. About 8 years ago, my wife Liz and I had brunch at Amy and Bill's. After the meal, I suggested to Bill that we try to sing something together. I have no idea why. We never did it before. We flipped through his voluminous 3-ring binder and we picked a song that we're going to do for you today. After we sang it, Amy, who is not a huge fan of music, is that correct? No? Yeah. Not a huge fan, spontaneously, loudly, excitedly proclaimed that our singing was amazing and we needed to get together to sing as often as possible. something along those lines. I might have exaggerated a little. Personally, I think, in part, she was trying to pawn Bill off on me twice a week to get a break from his freneticism. But I must say, and I don't want to sound immodest, we did sound really, really good together that day and time since. And with her rave review, Amy made the dopamine in my brain go berserko. And basically, since that day, I would love to be singing and playing music with Bill 24/7, 365, if only we could have gotten paid for it. But I want to give you all the opportunity to feel the same thing. So if you want to join in on the chorus of this song, you'll probably recognize it. If you don't, you'll learn it quickly. And maybe you'll get addicted as well. And then you can join Lenny and the Paly-ntologists we shoot for twice a week. And if you join us at the Hootenannies, that'll help keep Bill's memory and spirit alive. And I am pledging to keep the Paly-ntologists going. So the song is called I'll Fly Away, written by Albert Brumley. And if you feel up to it, it might be healing and might help to mend the holes that are in our broken hearts at this point. So, how do we start this one? I remember. Come bad morning, when this life is over, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. Everybody, I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away, hallelujah. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. When the shadows of this life are gone, I'll fly away in the morning, like paper from prison bars has flown. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away, hallelujah. When I die, hallelujah, by and by,
Thank you for that glorious and comic relief for what's really, for all of us, very sad. This is just an extraordinary gathering, and I don't have any prepared comments, so I'm going to be a little extemporaneous about this. But this place, of course, brings back tremendous memories. We all went to religious school here and went through bar mitzvahs and confirmations here, so there's a long sense of identity here, but more important, the identity with this extended community that's mostly highly local. There are people here from our distant past going even back to New Haven, and our parents' roots there. But the strength of a cohesive community like this, of friends, family, patients, partners, is just very impressive. It's something that I think very few people in our world today can really appreciate and enjoy anymore. And I can say, in all sincerity, despite having been, moved away from here in my teens, functionally, that this is still my home. And when people ask where I come from, it's always from Marblehead. And just overwhelmed by everybody's coming together. I guess all I would say is we've got to stop meeting like this. Too many losses in our family recently. And then next, just in regards to John's description of Bill as a patriarch, he did shoulder that role joyfully and explored the genealogy of our family, continuously curious about that, amazing discoveries about it. And to that I will add, I surrender that role. I don't want it. One of you guys have to take it. So the keeper of the keys will not be mine. Everybody's extolled Bill's, my brother's, many virtues, and so I don't need to reiterate those, but I want to explore one feature of his life that has been described in many ways rather as a fisherman, as a guitar collector, an accumulator of music, of art, antiques, sporting equipment. But it all really came from him being a garbage picker. And so this is part that is a little more intimate, that he bears a genetic defect that all of our siblings do. Oh yeah, you and your rocks, come on. All of us have this accumulator gene defect. And we've exhibited it in different ways. My sister Karen with her dolls, Melissa with her rocks, Bill with a number of things, and myself, I have modest collections as well. But it all started with Bill and I really on our paper route. So we needed to make pocket money. So we had a paper route that Bill and I shared for 5 years, which was around Clifton, Ticehurst, Joel Road, and then across the street in the then new neighborhoods on the other side of Atlantic Avenue. And of course, the winters were cold, but the best day was Wednesdays, because that's when people put their trash out. And Bill would drop off the papers, and he'd always come back with something in his bag. And so my parents had a large house and a big basement, and there was stuff in there that you just couldn't believe. And so there were always, broken bits of machines, parts of bicycles, but then there were things like boxes full of dental floss. There was some dentist that was retiring, and he'd emptied out his whole, office and put it out there, and there was all this perfectly good dental floss. Well, a lot of that stuff was still there when my parents' house was sold just a few years ago. So you can call it fishing or foraging or collecting, but really a lot of it was trash. And part of it, so it went from absolute trash to bargains, like going to flea markets and stuff, and graduated to very expensive guitars. But it's all part of the same defect. But he did it not necessarily methodically, but with great passion, and his hat collection is a reflection of that. His style was inimitable, and it's really only now in retrospect, especially reading what Melissa wrote about his character, that I realized just how much similarities he and I shared. And of course, growing up as siblings, there's not necessarily rivalry, but I didn't feel like we were really that similar. And perhaps as adults, we ended up having remarkably similar qualities as adult eccentric characters. And of course, he got the hair, so I've always ended in that. That's why he really didn't need the hats, but he, got into that. But his sense of style was definitely, not haute couture. And he towards the end of his cycling career, he actually did go out and buy some decent gear. But he rode like these rusty old bicycles that were like 20 years out of date. He'd ride around. I'd come here to go riding with him, and he was like wearing an old hockey helmet and socks up his caps. He really kind of looked like the village idiot. I mean, out riding, I was embarrassed to go riding with him. But he kind of stepped up his game later. But the one thing that, the real high style that Bill had, and which, of course, he copied from me, was footwear. I mean, come on. Keens and socks. Now, that's something that really is a Pacific Northwest style. So, I got to say, he got that from me. But anyway, enough said. We loved him immensely, and he's gone way too soon, and there'll always be that hole in our hearts. And so any serious reflections on this is that there's really no meaning to this. He gave us everything he could give, and this was a random event. And if there's anything that we can be glad about is that, and I'm not going to say tritely that he died doing something he loved, but he was a happy man. He was a good man in every way. And this is just a random event, and we can't be angry at anyone. We can't blame anyone. We can't sue anyone. And he would have wanted it very much this way. Obviously, too soon. But anyway, thank you all very much.
I'm Sam Judd, also known as Amy's brother, which is apparently a very big thing around these parts. Before I do a reading, I wanted to tell you how I'm feeling Bill's presence all around us. First, it started right at the burial, when we took a walk through the cemetery after the burial and saw a coyote just sitting nearby. I don't know about you, but I've never seen a coyote in the wild, and I consider that sign number one. Sign number two occurred a couple days after the burial. Amy saw a praying mantis on top of Bill's smoker, something which he loved. They had never seen a praying mantis in the area. She sent a photo out to all of us about that. Fast forward to yesterday. We're staying at the Walker's house. Thank you, Susan and Stowe, wherever you are. About 200 yards from Amy's house. I'm standing at the front door, and something caught my eye. There, down by the corner of the door, behind the screen, barely visible, is a praying mantis. Maybe it was the same one. Sign number three. I read an obscure but very moving poem at the burial that to me seemed to epitomize how best to keep Bill's essence alive. The last lines say, Love doesn't die, people do. When all that's left is love, give me away. Meaning that we can celebrate Bill's life by sharing love as often as he did. 4 days after that, a person to whom I'm connected on Facebook but haven't seen in 40 years posted that exact same obscure poem online. 3 signs. I think all of these are indications that Bill is still around us. He's woven into the fabric of our lives, certainly of our family, and the best way to honor him is to give love away as much and as often as you're able. And now for the reading. When Death Comes by Mary Oliver. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what's it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each flower, each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does towards silence, and each body a line of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it is over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world.
We were fortunate to have Bill's friendship for almost 35 years. Time that passed quickly, as full lives seemed to, and included the landmarks of establishing careers, building families, finding community, sharing life transitions, planning for the retirement years. This last piece was on the horizon for Bill, an ambivalent step given his love of his work, but one he was moving toward. As a foursome, Bill, Amy, Stefan, and I planned trips every year, occasions which we all looked forward to and remarkably seemed to execute harmoniously. We were a solid foursome, one that began when I met Stefan and after he passed muster with Amy and Bill. We often recalled Stefan's and my second date at the house on Puritan Road in Swampscott when Amy and Bill urged me to invite Stefan over for that date. Maybe it was the 3 pints of ice cream Stefan brought that sold him to Amy and Bill, or maybe we four just clicked. When babies began arriving, our trips expanded to include our young families, creating memories and jokes strong among us still. What fun we had. We had become each other's chosen family. On those vacations, Bill was a father who enjoyed the children and encouraged them to explore, matching their curiosity and enthusiasm with his own, whether catching bass on Alden Pond in Maine or gazing at frescoes in the Louvre. And I mustn't forget that we always had a grand time looking forward to gastronomic adventures in those cities and towns, laughing about our more than robust appetites for the local cuisine. Bill's sense of humor and willingness to be goofy were big parts of him and our fun. Yet with all of Bill's talents, he was a modest man, never needing to inflate his ego with pomposity or preaching. As has been noted here today, he offered up his interests with an enthusiastic spirit and eagerness to share.
Just a couple words before I read this. Listening to David, I think it's very, very true that Bill was a collector. And it didn't matter what he was collecting, but he was all in whenever he was collecting. But most importantly, I think he collected people, friends. And this whole room is a giant testament to that. But no more so than Amy. And we want to speak for a moment about Bill. When Amy was diagnosed with cancer, now 10 years ago, he was a steadfast presence combined with the respect for how Amy chose to address her disease and treatment. When we all were reeling from the shock of the diagnosis, we recall clearly that Bill told Amy with impassioned angst that she was the love of his life. And indeed, she was his shining star light. Theirs was a love that made a beautiful family, with Jonathan and Ben their greatest joy. This mutuality of Amy and Bill's devotion to and love for each other, so deeply and unambivalently communicated, could not have been more poignantly evident than during the few days after Bill's accident. What gifts they gave to each other in letting go. And Bill's gift to us of abiding friendship will stay indelibly in our hearts.
Please rise if you are able for the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkada v'yikada shemei rabba ve'alema divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואימרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלם מעלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואימרו אמן יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל Yisrael v'imiru amen. Say shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru, ve'imeru, amen.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bill's younger son, Ben. I want to thank you all personally for being here today to celebrate Bill's life. We are blown away by the extensiveness of my dad's connections within his various communities and everyone's interest in celebrating his life with us. My dad's life had many facets, from family to music to medicine and fishing and beyond, and we've heard about many of them today, along with the qualities that made him so special. For those of us who spent less time with him in the context of fatherhood, I'm going to make the case that this is the domain where he excelled beyond all others. And I thought it would be helpful to move from broader descriptions to concrete examples of his qualities in everyday life. So in order to do that, I'm going to share several of the emails that my dad sent to me in the last active week of his life. And I hope that you'll consider this a snapshot, just a 1-week glimpse into a lifetime of love and support. So let's get into them. Wednesday, September 25th, 5:20 p.m. Subject, the fish. Contents, 4 pictures with varying degrees of crookedness and thumb outlines showing my dad and his friend Steve with their monster tuna. Anyone who knew my dad knew that he was a man of many hobbies and interests. But this brief moniker, the man with many hobbies, falls short of fully capturing this part of my dad's essence. He immersed himself in the world around him. He wasn't guided by some formally adopted life philosophy. It's just who he was. He recognized the preciousness of our time here, and he capitalized on it day after week after month after year. As a father, he always sought to bring us into his passions and help us to nurture our own. He loved any discussion with us about one of his recently completed activities, but derived even more satisfaction from hearing about our own endeavors, which were always followed by enthusiastic remarks and encouragement to push our interests even further. I inevitably walked away from time at his side feeling energized to double down on current passions and find new ways to explore the world around me. In this way, I am who I am today because of him. The second email is actually a series of 3 emails dating from September 11th through September 30th, each of which contained an article that he wanted me to read. I think you'll pick up on the theme. Wednesday, September 11th, 5:02 p.m., subject forward, number of vaping-related lung illness cases surge. Sunday, September 15th, 6:28 a.m., subject, vaping bad, were 2 Wisconsin brothers, the Walter Whites of THC oils, with the content that just says, "This is why." Monday, September 30th, 7:32 p.m., subject, many vaping-related lung injuries tied to illegal marijuana products, CDC says. So for context, I had recently divulged to my dad that I had a vape pen that got very, very infrequent use, and all of these emails were the result. My dad had his moments of anxiety about our safety, and these moments did continue to slowly increase in frequency as he aged. If he felt that our health or safety was at risk, he was persistent in his badgering. While we did give him a hard time for it, there was never any question as to where this concern came from. His love, his deep, unrelenting love, was clear in his first vaping email and painfully clear by his third. To grow up in a world filled with consistent, unconditional love was a blessing in the truest sense of the word. And I know that the only way that he would want to be thanked is by paying that love forward to the next generation of our family. In this way, I am who I am today because of him. Monday, September 30th, 6:49 p.m. Subject, mom's father, owner of Clay Adams Medical Supply Company, 1934. Contents, an article clipping from 1934 about my great-grandfather's business in New York City. My dad has always cared deeply about family, but his interests in our ancestry have blossomed in this last decade. He spent hours on Ancestry.com and other sites looking at census documents, article clippings, and other artifacts that incorporated the lives of our ancestors. Based on my conversations with him, I think that he found comfort in knowing that he was a link in a chain that stretches back for countless generations and will hopefully continue on for many more. He talked about the ways in which the actions of previous generations have brought us to where we are today, and spoke of family as an entity larger than any one individual. There's something oddly comforting in this notion of being one piece in a much bigger puzzle. Perhaps a sense of smallness would not be comforting to everyone, but I strongly suspect that it comforted him, and I know that it's helped me immensely in my own attempts to wrap my head around mortality. I feel both the honor and the duty to continue to pass on the stories of our family to future generations. In this way, I am who I am today because of him. And I'll share one final email from that week. Tuesday, October 1st, 8:16 a.m., subject, AMA article synopsis, and then his note to my brother and I, which said, "This is an interesting weekly publication by AMA which gives brief summaries of all kinds of interesting medical and sometimes social science-related research. You guys might find it interesting from your personal perspectives." My dad had a thirst for knowledge, which coincided with his lifelong quest for skill acquisition. He was fortunate to have a sharp mind, but a sharp mind alone does not fill itself up with knowledge. His curiosity, his drive for understanding and mastery, his willingness to sink hours and days into learning, these are the qualities that pushed his abilities forward. And he was the first to encourage us to do the same. He demonstrated the importance of being an informed and capable member of society. He showed us that self-sufficiency is an admirable goal that can and should be a central pillar of personal development. And I'll share a quick anecdote on this topic. Several months ago, my partner, Andrea, who I want to state up front is completely wonderful and capable, had a raccoon that had taken up residence in her attic. When she called for a professional to come in and trap it, I was shocked and even a bit hurt. Contract someone else to do something that we're perfectly capable of figuring out how to do on our own? All we need to do is go out and get a trap, bait it, and trap the damn thing. It took further reflection to realize that this was perhaps not the most typical response, and was only my response because when we were growing up and squirrels got in the walls, Dad was up in the crawl space, trapping squirrels and dropping them off in the bird sanctuary across town. The idea of hiring someone to do this for us was never even on our radar. His drive for self-sufficiency extended to all aspects of his life, from home maintenance to food to entertainment and beyond, and served as a guiding philosophy in his life. He made it clear that the only thing standing between us and mastery of a new skill or topic was dedication to learning and self-improvement. In this way, I am who I am today because of him. These emails are just a tiny snippet of a much greater picture. First, my dad was endlessly curious about and engaged in the world around him. Second, he constantly communicated how much he cared about us through his words and his actions. Through countless messages of affirmation and encouragement, my dad made his love and pride for us crystal clear. As my brother mentioned, in his last few days, we were able to sit together with full confidence in our mutual understanding of how we felt about each other. There was no sense of urgency to communicate last-minute thoughts or reflections. We already had a lifetime of experiences that spoke louder than any final statements ever could. This is one of the many lessons that I will carry forward. to live my life in such a way that when I reach the end, regardless of how timely or untimely that end might be, the people that I care deeply about already have years of experience affirming my love and respect for them. In this way, I aim to be a better person because of him. Thank you all for being here today.
Boy, the rain on the roof is getting louder, and it's a sort of a comforting blanket in a weird sort of way. In the days after Bill's accident, I wrote some words that I was fortunate to be able to share with him in his final hours, and I'm going to read it here to you today. What I want you to know. I want you to know that I don't resent those times when you held me down on the Persian rug and tickled me until I cried for help. I probably laughed at the beginning because that's what little sisters do when their big brothers pay attention to them. I want you to know that the mouse house you made when I was 6, with tiny nails, hinged door, and a little latch, a wooden ladder to reach the bunk above, and a colorful quilt with clumsy stitches to keep my toy mice warm at night, might still be the best present ever. I want you to know that it was probably a bad idea to give me a gram of hash for my 12th birthday. Who would do that? But it was a badge, a window that you brothers opened to a wider, wilder world. I still cannot believe he did that, and especially because my parents found it, of course, about 2 weeks later. And they took it away. That was the worst part. I want you to know your sweet finger picking on dark nights at the farmhouse warmed me like the wood stove, singing along on one more tune after everyone else has gone to bed, sharing that simple sweetness of a song wrought on a winter night. I want you to know the comfort you've brought when ACLs tear, ankles fracture, wrists shatter, and I know just whom to turn to put the pieces back together. I want you to know that I saw you lift a heavy mantle when Sydney slipped away in that hospital room in Salem, and that you have worn it graciously, filling his physician's shoes, holding Paley's taut during our many passages, and embroidered upon it your own imprints and inquiries, threads of curiosity about the arc of family, how we are not just ourselves, but knotted together in time that moves in 2 directions. I want you to know that our weekend together, just a few days and a lifetime ago, will forever fill me with light and gratitude that the tuna you so proudly landed and the music you so profoundly love coincided, and that we had that magical time to celebrate your catch, savor songs, laugh with friends, talk of love and life, hopes and despair, tomatoes and beans, while paddling on a perfect September afternoon. We all know that you have been in this world as fully as a person can be, with your hands, your heart, your mind, and tragedy will not change that you are where trails merge, chords strum, fedoras tip, bones break, clams spurt, fish jump, seeds grow, peaches ripen, sons celebrate, families unite, and we are with you there. With that, I'm honored to turn the mic over to one of Bill's all-time favorite musicians, whose tunes, tones, humor, and wisdom have been part of the arc of Bill's life. and of many of ours for many decades. Thank you for being here to soften the blow, the legend, the muse, my friend, Tom Rush.
I'm honored to have been asked to be part of this gathering, and I'm in awe that all these people who love Bill so much managed to say their wonderful remembrances without having a total meltdown. I'm on the verge of one myself. Bill loved music and he loved water. And Melissa asked me to do this instrumental. It's called Rockport Sunday, and it's meant to evoke waves and seagulls and church bells. guess there's time for a song that isn't on the program. But I think was another favorite of Bill's. A good tune for this time of year. I woke up today and found the frost perched on the town. It hovered in a frozen sky, gobbled summer down. When the sun turns traitor cold, and shivering trees are standing in a naked row, I get the urge for gold that never seemed to go. And I get the urge for gold when the meadow grass is turning brown. Summertime is a falling down, winter closing in. I had a girl in summertime with summer-colored skin. And not another man in town my darling's heart could win. When the leaves fell trembling down, and bullet winds did rub their faces in the snow, she got the urge for gold. Let her know. And she got the urge for gold when the meadow grass was turning brown. Summertime was a falling down, winter closing in. Warriors of winter give a cold triumphant shout, and all that stays is dying, all that lives is getting out. You see the geese in chevron flight, flapping and a racing on before the snow. Get the urge for gold, get the wings to go, and they get the urge for gold when the meadow grass is turning brown. Summertime is a falling down, winter closing in. I'll apply the fire with kindling, pull the blankets to my chin, I'll lock the vagrant winter out, hold my wandering, call back summertime and have her stay for just another month or so. She's got the urge for gold. I guess she'll have to go. And she gets the urge for gold when the meadow grass is turning brown and all her empires are falling down, winter closing in, and I get the urge for gold when the meadow grass is turning brown. The summertime is falling down. I'd like to ask the paleontologists to come back up and help me on one more song. You were not invited to sing, you were instructed to sing.
We wear the hats.
You can wear the hats. Wouldn't be the same without the hats. It's for Bill and everybody who loved him. Day after day I'm more confused, yet I look for the light through the pouring rain. You know that's a game that I hate to lose. I'm feeling the strain, ain't it a shame? Give me the deep voice, free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Hey, give me the beat, boys, free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Beginning to think that I'm wasting time, and I don't understand the things I do. The world outside looks so unkind. I'm counting on you to carry me through. Give me the beat, boys, free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Give me the beat, boys, free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. And when my mind is free, you know a melody can move me. And when I'm feeling blue, the guitar's coming through to soothe me. Come on, soothe me. I want to thank you for the joy that you give to me. I want you to know I believe in your song. The rhythm and the rhyme and the harmony. You carry me along. You're making me strong. Give me the beat, boys, free my soul. I want to get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Hey, now give me the beat, boys, boys, free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, take me down, take me down, free my soul. Hey, give me the beat, boys, free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away, oh, drift away. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Before Amy comes up for the final, I just have to thank Tom so much for enriching us with these beautiful songs and tell you that Bill did have a chance to play with Tom at Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago, and aside from his night of his wedding and the birth of his two sons, I think he would agree that it was the highest moment, the greatest moment of his life. And the very last concert he went to hear was Tom Rush when he played up in Agunquit just nights before his accident. So thank you so much for being here with us.
I'd like to thank all of the speakers and musicians who have embraced our family and friends with this magnificent tribute to Bill. My special thanks to Melissa, to Jonathan and Ben, and to Lynn Horowitz, who organized this program, and to Max Rosenfeld, who videotaped it for those who were unable to attend. I am so grateful to all of you for coming today and for the outpouring of love and support that you offer me and my family. Together we will continue to honor Bill and to reflect on the remarkable life he led. Before we leave the sanctuary for some conversation and refreshments, there's one more person I'd like to thank. I am eternally grateful to Bill for being a most loving and joyful life partner, father, and friend. Thank you all.
It's a long and dusty road, and it's a hot and heavy load. The folks I meet ain't always kind. Well, some are bad and some are good, and some have done the best they could. Some have tried to ease my trouble and mine. And I can't help but wonder where I'm bound, or where I'm bound. I can't help but wonder where I'm bound. I've been wandering through this land, just doing the best I can, trying to find what I was meant to do. And the people that I see look as worried as can be, and it looks like they help but wonder where I'm bound. Now I had me a buddy back home, and he started out to roam. I hear he's out by the Frisco Bay. And sometimes when I've had a few, his old voice comes a-ringing through, and I'm going out to see him someday. And I can't help but wonder where I'm bound, or where I'm bound. I can't help but wonder where I'm bound. Well, if you see me passing by, and you sit and you wonder why, and you wish that you were a rambler too, well, nail your shoes to the kitchen floor, just lace them up and bar the door, and thank your stars for the roof that's over you. Because I can't help but wonder